Hey guys, we are back again one more time on this thing called the worldwide internet thingy, world internet web stuff. And appreciate y'all being here. Tim was out, then he was in. So now he's back. Hey, we got a full crew today, especially after last week, which is kind of strange. But anyway, strange is what we do. To my immediate left is Tim Shepard. And over on the other side of him is returning a special guest, Kent Rasmussen. These are Kent, and then down below Tim is Lewis, right down there. And they've been regular special guests. Over in the far corner is Andrea, way over there, one of our ETs. And down below me, we're having internet connection issues, but Paula, we're going to talk to her in just a second. We have a special treat with our Strange Sightings Files this week. She was actually the one that took these pictures we're going to be talking about. Welcome to the Strange Journeys. Again, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Tom. I'm your ghost host. And this is Strange Journeys 40 Wax, the Lizzie Borden story. This is our take on Lizzie Borden. I've been watching Lizzie Borden videos all morning until I'm cross-eyed. But remember that we provide these shows first and foremost for your entertainment, you, the watchers. Remember, y'all, that's what we're calling you now, the watchers. You are the watchers. You're not our viewers, you're the watchers. We provide these for your entertainment. We are not by any means and do not claim to be scholars or experts in any of the topics we cover. We're simply enthusiasts and storytellers who have fun with the topics while respecting individual beliefs. Also remember that we're live. This is not rehearsed, and I don't even go back and edit it out later. What you see is what you get. Okay, and we start each show with ET facts. Oh, something else I wanted to mention. Tim, right there. He's going to be trying to help me in co-hosting duties. He's signed in like I am to all of the background stuff where he can throw up pictures and videos and stuff like that. So y'all give him a hard time for every time he screws up. But Tim's going to be helping me behind the scenes as much as he can today, and he's never really played on it, so we know he's still trying it out. But we always start the show with ET facts. Now, I think Tim, didn't you come up with this one?
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did. All right.
Yes,
the
I
ET
did.
facts. ET facts this week. What is your most recent paranormal encounter? And I know I'm looking forward to hearing from Lewis because I know he just recently went on an investigation and he hadn't in a while. I was reading those posts, Lewis. I'm keeping up with you. All right. So why don't you go first?
Well, last weekend I was part of a public investigation at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. And it was a really incredible investigation. We had a huge amount of activity. Probably the most significant thing, there was a doctor who was one of the founding doctors of this hospital, who was an avid pipe smoker, and he is frequently experienced as the scent of his pipe smoke. And we're standing there in the ER, and as we're standing there, someone next to me said, "I smell it." And so I pulled my mask down, and lo and behold, there was that scent. And the scent continued. It would just disappear and then reappear. And it did that several times. And that was really, really cool.
Oh, wow. All right. Gosh, maybe we can hear more about your investigation later. Okay. Kent? Yeah. Any recent paranormal? He's practicing his podcast voice. I need to have a link to that, but he has something about paranormal and supernatural. My mind just went blank, Kent. God.
Yeah, sure, whatever. I feel the love. Anyways, The most recent one I've been on was just to a local cemetery. We had an XLR camera out there, and we actually had a couple of figures that were responding to us with everything by motioning via the camera. Like you could see their stick figures pop up, and we'd ask them to wave, they'd wave. We ask them to dance, they'd dance. I mean, there was also a very not so nice entity in there, but we won't discuss him right now.
Okay.
He was kind of the grumpy old grandpa of the cemetery.
Wow. Mysteries of the Paranormal and Beyond.
There you go.
That's his podcast. You can find him on Spotify and Apple. What is it? Apple? I don't do Apple except for my work stuff.
iTunes podcast.
Yeah.
There's like 7 different platforms.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, check that out. And of course, Lewis with southernspiritguide.org. So y'all need to check that out too. They're both on Facebook. All right. Andrea, do you have a recent paranormal experience?
Did we lose her?
She's muted.
She's muted. Well, Lynn said, hey.
I'm here. Got it.
And Lynn said, hey. And my niece, our niece, Brianna, showed up and said, hey, y'all. Or Lynn, she's saying hey to Lynn. She ain't saying hey to us. She's saying hey to Lynn. All right.
So the Grave Hunter Society went to Mansfield to go to the Ohio State Reformatory with PSEI to do a PSIE to do a paranormal investigation.
Paranormal spirit encounter investigations.
Yeah. So
Luna, that's been on here several times.
Yes. And 2 of our friends and John and I just kind of separated ourselves and started wandering around trying to see what we could find, just doing a little bit of urban exploration. And we set up some equipment in a guard room, one of the bedrooms that the guards were at. And if anybody's familiar with the Ohio State Reformatory, you'll know that Shawshank Redemption was filmed there. Mm-hmm. So there's also a really awesome museum to walk around. So I just set up my EMF meter, set it on the table, and Joelle and Warren are sitting across the room from us on a bench, and John and I are sitting up against a wall. And I start talking. Like, is there somebody here? Yeah, I'm getting kind of bored. Could somebody show themselves? Now's your opportunity. And John and I both saw it. Out of the corner appeared up high on the right side of the room, a greenish blue orb. It was about that big. It was a bright light. And it appeared and it went down. And the only way I can explain how it moved, it's like it oozed down the wall, but it didn't leave a trail. It just slowly oozed. And then it went and just kind of disappeared.
So you saw
My final words would have been, wow. I mean, that's all I could get out was just, whoa. John was like, did you see that? Did you see that? And suddenly Joelle and Warren are over here sitting next to us because they're like, what, where, I have the picture on my computer. Not too long after that, Joellen's going around taking pictures in the corridor. So there's this corridor area. All the rooms, the bedrooms are attached to for the guards and the superintendent. Wow. And she captured a green orb. And I mean, it's right there. So that was 2 weeks ago. So that's our paranormal experience.
Well, Paula, do you want to get in on this?
Pardon me?
We're going to talk about your pictures in a little bit, but have you had a recent paranormal encounter you'd like to share?
I mean, just my normal daily routine. I mean, I've seen orbs my whole life, but for some reason where I'm at right now, they're everywhere. I see them every day, every evening.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we may have to have you on the show to talk about everything that you're seeing. All right. We're getting a lot of background noise somewhere, guys.
Oh, my goodness.
That may be from me.
Okay. All right, Tim. Since you came up with this.
I did. Mine happened just Wednesday night this past week. we have an inside dog and an outside dog, but they both sleep
Yeah.
in crates down in the basement. And the inside dog does not like it when I go to get her. But I went out to go get the outside dog, brought her in, go get the little dog, and she's a little Maltese. And I saw something white run right past my feet and around the corner and into the dining room. And I'm
Wow.
like, this stupid dog, I'm going to go catch some Maltese. And my wife is like, don't bother. That cat is extremely visible and active tonight. We've got a ghost cat that's been around our house for about
Wow.
10 years now. And that's exactly what I saw because the dog had jumped onto the couch with my wife to make sure that I wasn't going to grab her and put her downstairs.
Oh,
But
wow.
we've seen her for years since she passed away, and she just wanders the house. You'll be looking, and there'll be a cat walking by, and we don't have a white cat
Wow.
anymore. So
Wow. Well, that's funny you say that about the ghost cat because we're actually going to talk about one later on in the show. I don't know if y'all saw that on the outline, but you will.
I
All
did.
right. Mine, I don't. Well, I'm still getting a lot of background noise somewhere. If you can remember to mute your mics if something is going on in the area. All right. Mine, I don't. Honestly, guys, I don't have a lot of paranormal activity around me. I talk about it a lot, but I don't experience it a lot. But when I got to thinking about this, when I saw the question, I thought, the paranormal probably happens to me all the time, but I'm oblivious because I just really, it's fine if it happens, and I'm not. But I got to thinking back to when last year, when the small part of the ETs, it was Beth and Donnie and Lynn and myself went to a friend of mine's house to do an investigation. And we had several unique things happen, but I wanted to show you, I cut out just this little clip of the flashlight experiments that I was doing. And I mean, this was me and the flashlight, or me and whoever was there. And so this is my, submission to ET's facts. All the way off, please. Almost there. Almost. Boom. Thank you. Are you one of the grandparents of the people that are working on the house now? Yes. I just thought that was amazing.
Wow.
We had that kind of activity with the flashlight up. And the thing is, and people don't know this because I when I was on the tour, we used the flashlight experiment every tour and had great success. But that flashlight was a little mini mag light, and, it had a real easy tube to twist. It was not a big deal at all. So, the argument could be made, well, it's just old and loose, and that's why it pops on. But in that video, I didn't have my old mini mag light anymore. I had one that I had never used, and you still had to fight it to turn it. And just to get it set to where it was off, just barely off, it took me several minutes to do it. And so what is going on there is with a mini mag light that is not, you can't bump it to turn it on. It's too tight. So it's just a unique thing. And another thing we got that night was tutor and student and things like that. And it was set up on a piano, the app that was giving us these words. And so I asked the owner, did somebody here teach piano lessons? And she said no. But when her aunt was a little girl, she would make her grandmother sit at the piano and act like they were teacher and student. Now, how cool is that?
Wow.
But anyway, we had some more unique stuff. That video is on YouTube, which you can watch that anytime on our YouTube channel. The whole unedited investigation where a lot of nothing happened and then a few things like that. But I do want to remind you, if you have a story, please let us know. please let us know. We want to hear from you. What is your strange experience? What's happened on your strange journey? So, like I said, we'll probably be having to get Paula back on here, hint, hint, and tell about her some stuff.
I'm still here. I don't know if you can see me, but I'm still here.
Well, we're getting a black screen, but we can hear you. So thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to be to that Strange Sightings Files in just a minute here. But this is May 1st, May Day, which in the Gaelic, Scottish, and Irish, it's Beltane. It's the May Day festival. It's held on or around May 1st. It's the celebration of the beginning of summer. Bonfires are kindled. The food and drink would be offered to the fairies. And let's see here. Doors, windows, and livestock would be decorated with yellow flowers. The maypole has been used, a tall wooden pole erected as part of various European folk festivals around which a maypole. Oh, wait, I had pictures of that. All right, Tim, you weren't reading my mind. Where did I put that? Let's see. There's the maypole. And you probably saw those as kids. Mm-hmm. I did. But it is also International Worker. What happened? I think Tim and I were clicking it at the same time. Also known as Labor Day in most countries and often referred to as May Day, in celebration of laborers and the working class that is promoted by the International Labor Movement, occurs every year on May Day, May 1st. So we salute you. I mean, it's mostly for people in service industries and laborers. And believe me, I think it was, who's the guy that did Dirty Jobs?
Mike Rowe.
Mike Rowe. When all this crap started last year and they said essential workers only, he said he was quoted as saying, everybody's an essential worker. I don't care if you're digging ditches, waiting tables. I don't care who you are. You are an essential worker. So we salute all of the laborers out there today. All right, Tim, you want to try some of these? If you're watching this on YouTube. And please like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, all that good stuff, because we're trying to, which we got, we got like 3 or 4 new subscribers this week. And so if you're watching, thank you. I'd have to go back and find them again. I'm sorry. Next show, we're going to try to, mention all the new subscribers, but also if you could support us on Patreon. And you can become a supporter for as little as $3 a month. We've had some new ones. Don't want to, make a big deal out of it, but Lewis is one of our new patrons. We thank you so much, sir, for joining us and helping us produce this show. By the way, this is Lewis's 5th appearance. You're a 5-timer?
I think so.
It's 5, and Kent's up to 4, so we'll have to figure out some way to get him to catch up with you. But Lewis is our first 5-timer. You've been on the show more than anybody else, and anyway. But also remember to check us out at strangejourneys.live and go to our merch site on there. It's updated. It's got a new look, and some new items on there. I'll let you go yourself. There's a link on the strangejourneys.live. But remember, when you go to the merch site, put in the code SJ15 at checkout for 15% off everything in the store, just for watching, because you are a watcher. So we want you to go check that out. All right. Now, for some reason, this shows up. What the hell? Oh, sorry. I shouldn't have said.
That would be me when I was playing on it earlier, when I got on earlier, just to see what all it does.
Okay. Oh,
There's
that's
a
why
picture that goes with it, too. So.
Yeah. All right. We'll put the picture up because when I checked in earlier, I was like, where'd this come from? That actually looks almost like the Krampus when we were doing the Krampus show, all the Krampus pictures we had.
Right.
Okay. All right. Before we get into the strange sightings, we want to talk just a minute about last show. Who actually watched the last show? I was on it by myself for about half of it. Okay. Anything? Well, it was an odd situation. Tim was out of power, and a fluke weird thing happened, and Tim wasn't able to be there.
It was Ottawa Co-op Company. Their trucker was coming into town. His hay bales on the back of the truck caught fire at some point, and he panicked. Was a real young kid. He hit both edges of the trestle bridge under town, and then hit a power pole and took out the entire power to the entire town, as well as the internet. The bad part about that is on, I think it's Wednesday this week, they had a second driver hit it in Falls River, Kansas, and do the same exact thing. So.
Oh my gosh! So anyway, that's why Tim couldn't be with us last week. And well, anyway, the show was It's All About the Boom Boom. Any thoughts about what was talked about on that show? I know one thing that Tim brought up was the Lewis Fenimore Cooper and the Indian legends about these ancient booms that were heard, and that led me to the Lewis and it was James Fenimore Cooper. It led me to the Lewis and Clark website where Meriwether Lewis was putting in his journal that they were hearing these massive booms, and they couldn't figure out what it was. You know, it's historical that this has been going on. And
I found it interesting that some of those have been tied to deities of the various tribes as well, that are reflecting thunder and lightning back up into the sky instead of it coming from above.
Yeah, and that actually happens from time to time.
Right.
I'll tell you that. But one of the videos that I played, they showed a graph, a seismograph on the computer monitor, and it showed, he said, you look right there, and there was a spike. And he said, here an event happened that shook the ground. I mean, he didn't say the ground shook and it caused an event. He said, whatever this event was, this loud noise, it was loud enough that it shook the ground. And that was a seismologist saying that. That was just so. And like I said in the show, you can go to YouTube and just put in mysterious booms, and you could see news report after news report after news report. I only played like 4 or 5 out of the ton of them that are on there. Anybody else?
It just made me wonder if there's any correlation between these, mysterious booms and the, I've heard them called like angel trumpets. I don't know if you've seen videos on that, and what's so odd is you could have a crowd of 25 people and maybe only 5 of them will stop and even notice that sound, Right. So is everybody noticing these booms, or is it just a select few? Is it, it kind of makes me wonder if there's some sort of correlation, some sort of reason why, some people are hearing it. So it does make the news because a lot of people are calling in, but then other people are like, I was watching TV. I didn't notice anything,
Right.
So are we too desensitized? So I don't know. I thought it was a very interesting show. I really enjoyed it. So.
Hey, Tommy made it.
Hi, Tommy.
Hey, Tommy. Hadn't seen you in a while.
Hello.
Hey.
There I
am. Was it your grandson that you had to take to the ER?
Yeah, there's a little
He's
sleeping
okay?
We took care of him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Good,
fine.
good. All
He's
right.
back out there running again now.
Well, good. And Andrea, I was going to say in the Wikipedia article, they list the trumpets and the angels singing into, correlating with all of the booms that are heard.
Huh. Okay.
I don't know who wrote the Wikipedia article, but on there you can see they list that as what do they call it? Skyquakes. They called it Skyquakes, and under the heading of Skyquakes was the angel voices, the trumpets, the booms, and things like that. All right. As I mentioned earlier, we've invited Paula. Paula, I do apologize, but you're going to have to pronounce your last name.
It's Motykiewicz, but you can just call me Paula.
Well, Paula, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you sing in a local band.
Yes, I sing in Pearls of Trinity. We have a gig this evening, as a matter of fact. I'm going to have to get ready in a little while.
Okay.
Grandmother of 11 grandkids, and that's pretty much my whole life.
Well, I can imagine. I got one down, my 10-year-old grandson down there watching YouTube or something while I'm doing this because Lynn had to go in and help her mom for a little while today. But Paula posted in the Strange Friends group the other day something unusual. Paula, before I made a little video with the pictures. Before I show that, tell us a little bit about what led to this.
Okay, it was in the middle of the night. I have two small dogs, and normally they don't ask to go out in the middle of the night, but every once in a while they do. And they were both insistent on going out that night. And I take my phone out there with me, especially at night, because there's not enough light for me to see, and I can't see them in the yard. So my phone's got the flashlight on it. Well, I actually heard and felt it first. It was like almost like a humming, but I don't know if I audibly heard it or if I just felt that humming. And then both my dogs noticed it at the same time that I did. And both of them came right to me and just stayed at my feet and would not move. Both of them were shaking.
Wow.
And I could hear or feel from which area of the yard it was coming from. And as I looked up, at first, all I saw was a light. And then I watched that light because it started out as the first picture I took was the white one. And it started out a bright white, and I watched it open up, like from what looked like a straight line at first to this big hole, this big opening. And I watched it change colors, and it went from the white to kind of a bluish color to that violet color. And it kind of moved in place. It didn't move out of that area, but I could tell that it was moving.
All right. Well, I'm going to play the video, and I think I got them out of order then because I think the colored one is first. But I do, in the video, kind of zoom in on them. So what do y'all think about this? Wow. thoughts, ideas? Now, the thing that intrigued me most about this is that Paula saw it. Guys, I don't know if y'all picked up on that, but Paula saw it and then took the picture. Now, Paula, the white looked kind of metallic to me. Did it ever take on a metallic?
It didn't appear metallic to me. It was just a bright white light. Like just an energy source. It didn't appear metallic to me, but you could feel the energy in my backyard was completely different than, you know how it feels when you're on an airplane and your ears need to pop?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. It like my ears needed to pop, like there was all this pressure around me and the hair on my arms was standing up. And I was too afraid to get any closer to it or to really move much because I didn't know what it was. I've seen orbs and different things like that my whole life, but I've never seen anything like this. And I just can't explain what it is.
All right. So, all right, guys, chime up on the private chat. Y'all had some stuff going on.
Kent's got a comment over there. He's got to unmute himself, though.
So, I've actually experienced something like this before, way many years ago when we were investigating a cemetery, and it almost, not to be influenced, but it almost legitimately looks like a vortex or a doorway is opening. My questions are, I got a couple different questions, and I'm trying to correlate some stuff here, so work with me. How long did it last that you could visually see it?
Paula?
Yes.
How long?
I don't know. I don't think it was that long. It couldn't have been more than a minute or two.
Okay. Yeah. And I know I'm on the West Coast, so obviously different time frames, but what time was this?
To me, what it appeared like, or the white one, the first one, the opening looked more like it was on the other side of it, whereas the one that's more of a violet, you could see the opening on the opposite side of it.
Yeah. What time of the night was this for you? Because I'm on the West Coast, so I'm obviously like 2 hours behind Tom.
Yeah, she's in the same area as me.
Okay.
So what time was that, Paula?
Oh, gosh. It was in the middle of the night. It was after midnight. I'm not sure exactly what time, but
was it between
after midnight.
Like midnight and 3 a.m.?
Andrea knows where I'm going.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is neither one of my dogs will go to that part of the backyard anymore. They will not go over there.
The reason why I'm asking this is because, and it's really weird that this happened, and this actually happened 2 days ago, ironically, here in Oregon, between Oregon, California, Washington, and Alaska, we got hit with a battering of earthquakes about 3 to 5 o'clock in the morning on the 29th. And I'm not talking little ones. They were like 3.0 to 6.0, and they were all relatively shallow. So it's kind of, I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Huh. I'm sure we got a ton of storms.
Yeah.
So something happened. When was this, Paula? Was this within the last week?
It's been about maybe 2-3 weeks ago now.
Oh, okay.
Well,
all right. Wow.
But between midnight and 3 a.m.
backyard, I have seen quite a few orbs and like a mist-like thing that appears sometimes in that area. But I have the same thing inside my house that happens all the time.
Wow, that's awesome.
So generally between like midnight and 3 a.m. is considered the witching hour. It tends to be when, while we're asleep, that's when the paranormal is going to be awake.
Stuff happens.
And things happen. That's why a lot of people wake up in the middle of the night because they're is something in here with me? And they just toss it off as it being nothing. And then they go back to sleep when it probably was something. I've read a lot of descriptions of vortexes or portals being described almost in the same manner that you photographed and in the exact same color. Greens are really prominent when it comes to portals. And it looks like you had some sort of portal opening up. And the fact that not only did you witness it, but you felt it, I mean, that definitely lets you know that there's something that was going on in the atmosphere around you. And I would say that was a little bit more than just electricity, you know. You know, you definitely, so you said you see orbs outside and in the house. So is your home pretty active? Like, do you have a pretty active home? Do you know any history on your home?
Well, the house is actually a newer house, and I don't necessarily think the activity that's in my house is because of the house. I think it follows me, because the house that I'm in right now, I've only been here for about 3 years, and our older house, we sold it. We were in it for 23, 24 years. And I mean, it was a daily occurrence, not only for me, but for my autistic granddaughter. She would, I mean, we used to video orbs flying around her room, and she would interact with them.
Oh, wow.
And she sees them here too. She's the only one of my grandkids that sees them like that. So I don't necessarily, now what was in the yard, I have no idea about that. But what I see in the house, I don't necessarily think is because of the house.
Okay.
Wow. That's amazing.
We live in a newer house, and I have had, just because it's new doesn't mean that you can't have paranormal.
It could be, it could be the land itself. I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Well, like I said, yeah, it is awesome. And that's going into the Strange Sightings Files. Be available on Patreon for our Patreon members, our patrons. See, Lewis will get to watch it again. And so if you want to watch that video again, sign up for Patreon, help us out, help us produce this show. Paula, thank you so much for allowing us to use your pictures.
Well, thank you guys for having me. This has really been great. I've never been able to find anybody that could explain it in any way or not get freaked out by it. So
I don't know if we've actually answered all your questions, but it is looking like a vortex opening in a portal, maybe. So we might have to get with Elizabeth Parker.
As long as it doesn't suck me in, we're all good.
No.
Yeah. No, you'll be fine. Like I said, you may want to get Elizabeth Parker over there.
Will do.
Yeah. And she'll be our guest in 2 weeks talking about her books. But Paula, you are welcome to hang out as long as you can. I know you got a show later on.
I'd love to, but I got to get ready. Got to go do sound check.
All right, Paula. Thank you so much. And we're going to get back with you to talk about some of your other experiences.
All right. Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye. Well, guys, that was awesome. Amazing pictures. But it's that time. Guess what?
Do come in. Someone has killed Father. When she saw what she had done, gave her father 41. Lizzie Borden took that
A little after 11 a.m. on the morning of August the 4th, 1892, in the quiet little town of Fall River, Massachusetts, Adelaide Churchill's yard work is interrupted by the screams of her neighbor, Lizzie Borden. Someone's killed Father. Adelaide rushed to the house only to find a horrific scene of bloodshed. Lizzie's father and mother, stepmother actually, had been brutally murdered. Thus, the scene was set for an axe murder that has become an icon of the Americana landscape. Giving birth to the rope-skipping rhyme, Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. And an event that still haunts us today. Now, for those of you that are in the room today in our little panel, how many of you had actually heard or researched the Lizzie Borden story before?
All of us.
Well, good. We're all, yeah. Well, perfect. So I think that's awesome. That's amazing. We were going to have a guest that had written a book about it, and she's under contractual obligations and to a new TV show. So they called her out at last minute. So I asked Kent and Lewis if they would be on with us and to help us talk about this. I think it's so awesome that you guys have already researched this. You'll have some insight here. I don't want to rehash completely. I've got the timeline of events, cast of characters, and that kind of thing. So I've already mentioned that when it happened, August the 4th, 1892. But I wanted to go back a little bit. Now, this happened in 1892. Lizzie was born in December 1860. I mean, and Emma, her sister, was 9 years older than her. So they would have been, I know Lizzie was 32 when the murders happened. And her sister would
126 pounds.
Yeah, and her sister would have been 41, still living at home. So these were considered spinsters, old maids.
Right. These were old maids.
Yeah. Okay, in December 1845, Andrew Borden marries Sarah Morse, and they later purchased the home that the murders happened in 1871. July 1860, Lizzie is born. And just a few years later, a little less than 3 years later, her mother, Sarah, dies. And then 2 years after that, Andrew remarries Abby Gray. And when Lizzie is basically, what's this? It was reported in 1887 she stopped calling God, I'm getting tongue tied here. Quit calling Abby her mother, started calling her Mrs. Borden. So she would have been what, 18, 28, somewhere 27. Took her a while to get to that point, but yeah, it's amazing to me that showed up in the legal documents that she refused to call her mother.
Right.
Okay. Andrew started out as a casket maker, made good money doing that, and then began to buy property and different things. But leading up to the murder, I know Sarah's brother, John, came to stay with him just a day or two before. And guys, I'm sorry. Like I said, I've been watching YouTube videos on this all morning, and everything is in my head at one time. So I'm trying to go by this timeline we've got here. But let me skip down a little bit. She calls her neighbor over. They find Andrew first. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. And then they go upstairs and find Abby.
Right.
All right. Let's see. Lizzie had sent Andrew out to mail some letters, but from what I picked up, he always took a walk at this time. And when he comes back, the maid has to let him in because the door was locked. So Lizzie speaks to him a minute. He goes to lay down. And at some point in here, Abby's already been murdered, and Andrew is murdered at this point. Now, we could break down timelines and all that, but this is when she calls for her neighbor, and the cops come in. Now, does anybody actually remember the actual timeline of the murders? Because I think Abby was supposed to have been murdered about 11.
She was murdered about an hour and a half. They suspect about an hour and a half before Andrew was, because of how her blood had coagulated and clotted on the ground.
Right.
But nobody really took into play that it's an upstairs, it's a second-story bedroom, but the light's shining on her. It's June. It's going to be stuffy up there.
Yeah.
It probably
could have dried faster.
I say it probably wasn't quite an hour and a half prior. Maybe it could have been anywhere from, because of that, the circumstances, about 15 minutes even of a difference. But on the timeline, the official timeline, it's an hour and a half.
Okay. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about, and I've got pictures of everything, but the thing is, I didn't want to bring up, the actual photographs. These old grainy photographs, thankfully, are not that detailed. So, because I didn't want to get into any graphic things on here, but okay. The little nursery rhyme says Lizzie gave her mother 40 whacks. We know it wasn't 40. It was what?
18.
18 or 19?
18.
Yeah,
right.
17 or 18.
Yeah. And then Andrew got about that many.
Right.
11.
11. Yeah.
11.
Okay.
It was like a 27, 28 wax in all.
Where's the blood? Where's the blood? You know?
Especially to the head. Let's be real. The head bleeds
Right.
more
Tremendously.
profusely than anything.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying Lizzie didn't do it, but all of the witnesses state emphatically that Lizzie had no blood on her.
I think she used her dad's wool coat and slid it under his head. When we were going over and I sent one video to you guys, that is like something that has stood out to me over the years of researching that. I'm like, that's exactly what she did. She was a petite, 126-pound, tiny girl, and her dad was very tall, comparatively. So his wool coat is going to cover everything on her. And she just rolled it up and stuck it under his head, and nobody paid any never mind to that. They were probably just really overwhelmed by the scene altogether. And lots of people use their coats as a pillow, but he never did.
Right.
He really took good care of his
pointed
things.
out.
I have a question. Realistically, let's think about this let's look at it from the physical and forensic sides here. Could a female who is petite physically swing a hatchet into bone 28 times?
Yes.
And physically pull it out?
It's bad.
Not just bone, a skull.
Yeah, and then she has to pull it out and do it again.
Yes. Here's what we know about female killers in particular. They have two normal methods. Usually it's either poison or stabbing. The ones that stab somebody will stab them over and over and over again because they are so angry about whatever has happened. One of the theories is that Lizzie was molested at some point in her life, probably by her father or with the stepmother knowing what was going on. So there's a lot of anger there. If that was happening, she could have done it with no problems.
Yeah, and that could be why there was an amount of time between them.
Right.
Well,
but
there was a point of contention between them because the father had just bought a house for his step and had been molested. And then they see their dad treating a child that's not his better. And they are eating, they're living, he was practically a millionaire for their time, and they're living really subpar, and he buys stepdaughter a house. There's going to be some heat there, what is all this worth kind of deal?
A historian I was listening to before we came on the air, he said that Andrew's reaction to that was, well, okay, here's a tenement house, and gave it to them for them to run, and they basically run it in the ground, and he had to buy it back because they were horrible landladies. And, that was his answer to, their criticism there. Why'd you buy her a house? And we're still sitting here without, running water and electricity.
Yeah.
So he bought them a tenement house, and they screwed that up. Basically, they couldn't even keep tenants in there because he was like, this is how I started out. So here I'm giving you this rental property and you take care of it, and didn't do a good job. But the thing I brought up the question was, she would have had blood on her hands. She may have been wearing a coat. Blood on her hands, blood in her hair, blood all over her face, in her nose, in her ears. She would have had blood everywhere. I just don't.
So there's another thing. I know, Kent, you said, could a tiny person do this? And I've been going through the notes, and I don't see on there. She did medically take morphine for lady problems.
Yes.
And she was on it quite a bit. And at a high dose that most people who are terminally ill, they don't even receive the dose
that
right. He was living on.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
I know, me personally, when I am hurt and I go to the hospital, that is something that is actually not on. I have chosen, I do not want morphine as a painkiller because it just makes me grouchy, and I'm not really a grouchy person. So I would rather, deal with the pain than be grouchy.
But will it physically affect?
Huh?
Would it physically affect her being able to swing a hatchet?
I told my husband that if I needed to go to war, just give me some morphine and I'd handle the situation. Because, that's how it handles, that's how it affects. I worked in the medical field for a long time, and that actually tends to be how it affects women in general. Men, it's completely different. It affects a woman's system differently. Yeah. And you could send them to handle a situation and they'll take care of it. No problems. So if she's,
Lynn brought up
angry,
a point.
Huh?
Lynn brought up a point that if there was abuse going on, whether physical or sexual or emotional or however it was, she had a long fuse if she waited till 32 years old before she snapped. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I would have thought she'd have snapped way before then if she did it. I mean, folks, if you're watching, we're not saying that Lizzie, hello watchers, you out there, we're not saying that Lizzie did it or didn't do it. We're trying, we're just asking questions that I'm sure have been asked by, scholars and professors before us. But, did the morphine affect her? If she was being abused, why did she wait till she was 32 years old before she did anything?
What didn't I read? So maybe it wasn't on your notes, or it was on another article I read just before the show. At the time he was murdered, wasn't he, Andrew, like 70 something?
Yeah.
It could have. It could have been she waited that long to make sure she had the advantage over him because he was bigger than her.
There's that. There is that.
I mean, it's lion is stalking her prey. She's going to go for the weakest one.
Yeah. Yep. That actually makes sense. Wait till he's more feeble.
I just wonder why I heard the first one. Yeah. I mean, wasn't the maid upstairs asleep?
Yeah, one floor above.
One floor above stepmom Abby, and 2 floors above Dad. And she didn't hear anything. Now,
no bone crunching.
I'm a sound sleeper. Come on,
Right.
You're going to hear bone crunching.
You should. Any thoughts, Lewis?
I really like the idea that, she probably did it after years of abuse.
Right.
You've just had these years of abuse that all of this has been simmering, and especially with the the relationship between her and her stepmother. And,
Right.
you know, when you start very coldly calling her Mrs. Borden, you know, I think that's definitely an indication there's been a break there.
And like I was saying earlier, just a few years before,
Mhm.
because it
Yes.
was reported in 1887. Where we go back over there? It was reported that in 1887 she made a statement that she was no longer calling her mother, but calling her Mrs. Borden.
Mrs. Borden.
Yeah, that was 1887. Lizzie Borden stops calling her stepmother mother, and then 5 years later is when Abby is murdered. You know, maybe something happened there, but you're right, Lewis. There was a tension there, obviously,
and you have to consider this is a period when, you know, any type of abuse was not discussed outside of the family, and even within the family, you would not have really talked about it. And you know, if you've had these horrible things happen to you, and essentially society is telling you you're the that you're the perpetrator of this, and you know, I can imagine that it was almost unbearable.
Oh, I'm sure.
Victorians were different back then. I mean, they weren't even allowed to mourn the same way that we can today. And a lot of women back then, whether they were victims of molestation or rape, was their fault. You know, they
were seducing the man. Yep.
Yeah.
You're right.
So she probably, if that was going on, you know, I mean, we're really speculating. If that was, I mean, even the church, she couldn't really go to the church, you know.
Right.
And what would anybody do at that point? She's 32 years old. You know, if it was actually going on all the way until she was 25, they would really say it was your fault. Why didn't you get out? You know, but where could she have gone?
Exactly.
And somewhere in one of these investigations I've seen televised, there was a psychic saying that, you know, there had been abuse, and even alluding to the fact that it was, you know, possibly sexual in nature.
Does anybody think, though, that it could not have been Andrew, but his brother, also a single man who would come and visit and who was actually staying at the time?
Well, John was Sarah's brother.
I thought John was. I thought Andrew's brother was staying with them during that time. I thought
it was Sarah's brother.
It was Sarah's brother.
His first wife Sarah's brother John. See, that's another weird kink in this story. Is technically yes, he's their uncle, but his sister that was married to the man is dead, so he comes over to hang out for a few days, but comes unannounced. They said when he would come before, he'd usually write a letter, but he just shows up 2 days before the murders.
Shows up unannounced, and his alibi was that he was riding into town with 6 priests, but the coach couldn't remember him at all, but only remembered the 6 priests.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the police said they cleared that. You know, they talked to, I think it was a trolley with 6 priests. He remembered the 6 priests and other people, but he couldn't remember anybody other than the 6 priests. So, so they accepted that alibi.
Victorians.
There's also another side of the coin to look at with her, if she did. Again, it's all speculation at this point because I wasn't alive back then.
No. I was close.
There's a big contributing factor to what could have played out in her, like you said, with the morphine, and it could have been simple jealousy.
Yeah.
Jealousy breeds rage, and rage, like to do what happened to them, that is 100% pure rage.
Right.
It's not just I'm mad because you did this to me. That's 32 years of rage and jealousy, and you know.
I I agree. And honestly, they gave morphine. I mean, they gave that to children,
Yeah.
and we don't know really what her problem was. We know it was given to her and the diagnosis was for lady problems, but she could have been suffering. I hate that so much, but she could have been suffering from, anything.
Yeah.
Bipolar disorder, not that bipolar disordered people are going to go out and axe murder their parents. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But, she could have had an actual mental disability going on. And all they did was intensify that with morphine. And she broke.
Right.
She just.
It could be.
She was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
And she just broke. Maybe they knew that she was like that, and that's why they kept her home. I mean, they may have known a lot of things going on in those walls that nobody on the outside knew.
Well, that to me is a given, because in that era, like you've mentioned before, you just didn't talk about it.
No. A lot of people still don't today, though, but especially back then.
No, they wouldn't. I mean, I think the nicest or the worst thing that's actually been said about Andrew Borden was that he was frugal. But, I think there's more to the story than that, because if, guys, we've all been raised in the modern era. We have modern plumbing, we have electricity, but all that was new back then in 1892, but he was wealthy enough to have indoor plumbing and indoor electricity, but he was so miserly that he refused it. Well, I heard one thing today that they still use the old well oil lanterns, for light.
So he was a conservative. He was a conservative Christian, and then throw on those Victorian values. They really did not, they didn't spend money like that. They were really modest in those ways. So if it worked, why step it up? This functions just fine. When it breaks, we'll replace it. Until it's broken, we're not going to replace it because it works just fine. And they were, they were like that. He was very involved in the church. Yeah. So with Abby and the two girls. So, they definitely had that simple. He had that. I don't think the girls agreed with that.
Well, I mean, they were involved in the church and everything, but it's proof positive of how they felt is what happened when she finally got released.
She went nuts.
Not guilty.
She went spin crazy, but she had just been to Europe. I think the year prior, she was there for a couple months, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. I mean, he did completely pay for her to go to Europe, to go to Paris. So it's not like he was super frugal, but she did spend. She bought a really nice house up the way, kind of deal. Yeah,
she bought a house on the hill.
Yeah,
more of probably 2 or 3 times the size of what she had been living in, and it had electricity and plumbing and you name it. I think somebody was talking today about one of the videos I was watching about how many bathrooms it had. She just threw in extra bathrooms. I want a bathroom here and a bathroom here.
Those are the things that she wanted. And honestly, let's say she wasn't guilty of this. Would you want to be and live in the house that your dad and stepmom were brutally murdered in? I'd sell it in a heartbeat. I'd move out. I wouldn't want to stay there. And I'd go get what I wanted. That's what she wanted, which was pretty extravagant. So,
but there's also one defining factor in this, and it's the case of the unknown, obviously. But back then, they didn't have the technology they do to solve crimes now. They probably walked into the house and go, "Yep, there's 2 dead bodies and blood."
Right.
They didn't have the thought process to fingerprints off the axe handle and hair
the axe
fiber.
handle was missing.
Yeah.
They found an axe head. The axe handle was missing, but they did go as far as to bring in the Borden skulls to the trial, which I thought was pretty. That was pretty intense. They brought their skulls in.
I think that was
and
a shock
Lizzie
value.
passed out in the middle of it. I would too. So,
I think that was for
which
shock
actually
value.
is what gave her a lot, like the jury felt mercy on her, because
sympathy with the jurors when she fainted. But I think that was for shock value.
Oh yeah.
The idea of fingerprinting, though, doesn't come until the 1920s. They're not the idea of using blood. About 1902 is evidence, and then it's I think 1913 before they can figure out the difference between like human blood and a cow's blood and
Right.
chicken's blood. So I mean, they didn't have the technology that we have today in order to be able to test all those things.
And I think it probably, if I remember right from watching certain shows, it's like the 60s or 70s when hair follicles came into play.
Right.
Back in that time, they were still using optography.
I saw about that.
Solve
That's
I knew
weird.
about that one. I was really excited to see that on that episode. I was like, it's really creepy. It's a really scary thought. But
did they try that with the boards?
No. But I mean, that's where their mind frame was back then, is they were still doing those kind of archaic, no evidence showing that actually works.
Okay, if y'all have never heard, anybody watching has never heard of optography, it's in a nutshell, they try to find an image on the retina of your eyeball of the last thing you saw. And supposedly they could take a picture. Go ahead.
They did that with Mary Kelly, who was Jack the Ripper's final victim.
Oh,
the one who was murdered in her own flat.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Were they able to find anything? Do you know?
No. And of course, her body had been so horribly mutilated that, I'm pretty sure they weren't able to get much of anything.
No. Yeah, I mean, that the optography just, to me, is, oh, God, my mind just went blank. It's just that Victorian, God, never mind. It's just that creepy, because they have to cut the eyeball in half, and it's just, it's strange. All right. Well, Lizzie was obviously arrested, went to court. There was actually all the evidence was eyewitnesses who didn't even see her swing the axe. Nobody saw her swing the axe, and hearsay and circumstantial, which I fully understand and agree with the verdict, because the prosecution did not prove their case. They did not produce evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. And with everything they said, there was reasonable doubt. So there was only one verdict to give. Now, whether she got away with murder or not, it's not for me to say, but the verdict was accurate in my opinion. And I'm no law professor, but the defense did their job of producing reasonable doubt. But that was on June 20th of 1893. And, of course, Lizzie moves into her new mansion. Now, I wanted to go over, I found this on, what was the website? Crap, I forgot which. I thought I put it in the notes. But it's, it was all from the trials website. Yeah, famoustrials.com website. They list 14 reasons to believe that Lizzie murdered her parents. And the first one is, if it wasn't Lizzie, then who? Are there any other viable witnesses? Then it looks like an inside job. Police found no signs of forced entry. I mean, this was the circumstantial evidence. There was nobody else. She had means and possibly motive. And although Lizzie claimed to have been downstairs when her stepmother was murdered, she said she heard noises, but didn't do anything about it. On the day before, she visited the drugstore and tried to buy poison. I guess they're saying since she couldn't poison her parents, she would take an axe.
But her parents did go to the doctor. Abby did, because
Right.
she thought she was. Yeah, they were sick. They had a stomach bug, and she actually is quoted saying to the doctor, "I feel like I was poisoned."
Right. But the druggist wouldn't sell Lizzie the poison.
Maybe Lizzie got it somewhere else. Maybe she found something
Who
else, and it
knows?
was just too weak to do the job.
Yep. Lizzie was quoted as having said that she was afraid someone was going to try to kill her father. So again, circumstantial evidence. Lizzie said that while she was alone in the house with her mother, a messenger came to the door with a note summoning her mother to visit a sick friend. But there was no note ever found, no sick friend ever found. Did she lie about that? When Bridget came back in, she reported hearing Lizzie laugh from the stairs when Andrew was trying to come in. Did she set something up? Lizzie claimed to have been in the loft at the backyard for 15 to 20 minutes looking for some lead sinkers for fishing, and they found it difficult to believe that anybody would voluntarily remain in that in the shed because it was so hot and stuffy. Lizzie we talked about this, had a strained relationship with her stepmother. A distant relationship with her dad. Let's see. She's been accused of being a kleptomaniac, stealing everything she can get her hands on. Again,
She was a loony.
yeah, she was.
She had some issues.
A little different.
She had a little bit of. She had some issues.
Yep. And then let's see. And then supposedly she burned the dress that she had been wearing the day of the murders in a fire.
But her sister did say that is something that they commonly did, which is really weird.
Right.
But that if they had a dress that was ratty or that they didn't like, they would burn it. It was something, and it was her sister's dress, she said,
Exactly. But again, all of this is circumstantial.
The maid was seen that night leaving the house, wandering somewhere, carrying a bundle. Nobody knows what that was. True. I do remember reading about that. Yeah. But nobody ever questioned the maid. Like, nobody really questioned her.
Nobody really. And
then she moved to Canada in the middle of all that. So
the maid just up and disappeared. But we look at it, 100 and so years looking back and say they should have done this, should have done that, should have done, But they worked with what they had, and the cops at the time did not collect any evidence to convict.
Burden of proof falls back on them.
Exactly. And maybe they should have called Sherlock Holmes over here from London.
Well, another thing I read, I don't know, again, if it was in your notes or the other article I read prior to the show, was back then they didn't seal crime scenes, which allowed people to go in and destroy evidence. So they could have had all the evidence when they first showed up, but they took her away, and then they're like, where did it go?
Yeah. That's true. So a lot of criticism can be made, but again, I feel like that the appropriate sentence or the appropriate decision on the part of the jury was correct, because there was no smoking gun or bloody hatchet. Now, we spent a lot more time on that than I'd really planned on, but it's so intriguing to talk about this with you guys. But I wanted to close out with the paranormal side of thing and get into some paranormal stories that have been told about. I tried to find videos and I couldn't. I got a few pictures, but I watched a ton of ghost hunting videos today, but there wasn't any just like little quick video things that I could do clips of, but we talk about some of them in our notes. Is it Tim? Have you gone over these?
Yes, I have.
Yes, Andrea, I know you sent videos. I'm just saying, when I was watching them, yeah, it's okay. As I was watching them, I was like, yeah, that's good. But, I wanted little video clips, and
Right.
all of them were 20 and 30-minute long videos. Some of them were 2 or 3 minutes, but it didn't really go over the paranormal side of things. But I was looking but I got a few pictures, but I wanted to read over this from hauntedhouse.com. In general, the former owners, the McGinns, and present day owners of this stately yet plain home had some experience. The lights had a mind of their own, turning on and off. The owners would be in a room, and in front of them, the wall switch would flick and turn on the lights. When no one was upstairs on the second and third floor, the McGinns and their staff would hear the doors open and close, followed by footsteps. Shadow people have been seen, especially on the staircase going down the main hallway and walking into other parts of the house. Owners of the home have seen shadow people move around different parts of the house. Sometimes staff and guests can feel someone brush against them on the stairs, and in various parts of the home, a shadow of a woman and an actual apparition that looks like Lizzie has been seen down in the basement by all the previous owners, staff, and some guests as well. Disembodied voices have been heard. Owner Leanne Wilbur felt the cold touch of a finger run down her back. When she quickly turned around, no one was there. Photos of misty human forms. That mist have been taken in the living room where Andrew Borden was hacked to death. And a paranormal group member saw with their own eyes the second time it happened. EVPs have been caught. Let's see. One of them said, did Lizzie, no. A question was asked, did Lizzie kill you for your money? And a male voice answered, you got that right. That doesn't sound like that doesn't sound like the correct vernacular for that day and era. But anyway.
No, it doesn't. But
yeah, well, yeah, whatever.
Kind of does. They had a lot of slang back then. They
true.
did. It wasn't all prim and proper. No. And he may have been kind of mad. He is dead.
Well, true. Here's another picture that was taken in the Lizzie Borden house. I mean, this could be double exposure. It could be. I mean, but this is put up as possible.
You got to be very careful. I mean, again, I appreciate the photos and everything like that. You got to be real careful with that trick photography because it can play some tricks. The camera can do some weird things to it.
Yeah.
Well, see, that was the unique thing about having Paula here with her photos, saying that she saw it. She saw it and then took the picture.
Well, not only that, but with hers, you physically in the photos, you see it change color. That's
right.
That's not a trick photography that the camera is going to be able to do.
Right.
It's going to give you one image, but it's going to bleed it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, we found this one. Somebody took this picture of an upstairs window at the Borden house.
Oh.
It's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
You can see her face.
Little kids are creepy. Sorry.
Somebody. Little kid spirits or ghosts.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Andrew Borden has been seen and is supposedly still upset that his life was so brutally taken from him. He has started to answer some EVP questions, and they say he goes about his business doing what he used to do when he was alive. Abby, let's see. Abby has been heard crying, or an older woman with gray hair has been seen happily puttering around the house, busy with her affairs. Oh, and here's the one from earlier. Well, it's Tim talking about the cat. A disembodied cat's meow is heard. The cat is still friendly and rubs. Oh, wait a minute! I just heard a cat.
So did I.
Who was there? When I said that, Who's got a cat? I just heard a cat when I said that.
I
I have
don't
a
have
ghost cat. Tim has a ghost cat. It was our ghost cats.
We have
I
a ghost
guess so.
cat, but we don't. Yeah, the cats are. I didn't hear it myself. It may be a neighbor kid because I can hear them screaming outside.
Oh,
Oh.
it might be that.
I
Right.
swear I heard a cat when I was talking about that.
Tom, you're not crazy.
My
I
cat's
heard
outside.
it too.
Yeah, something else was there.
All right. It says it's the cat is friendly and has been known to rub up against people it likes on the second and third floor. The maid, Bridget Maggie Sullivan, an EVP purportedly had a horrified scream and a ma'am come quick. They said this was Maggie. Cold spot are reported in Maggie's room, and an apparition of a woman dressed in maid's clothes is seen doing her chores.
Right.
2 young children have been seen in various parts of the house and have been heard playing marbles. And then, of course, Lizzie Borden has been seen. An apparition of a woman that looks like Lizzie has been seen in the basement. Well, I didn't understand that because there's not been much reported about the basement of their house. But anyway, that's from the LizzieAndrewBorden.com. It's a virtual museum. So
I have
before we get to Tim's stories, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I have a friend that he's from there, so he's been to the Borden house a few times, and I asked, "Have you had an experience?" And he's a doctor. He's very analytical, and he said, "Yeah, I have." And so I said, "Write it out, send it to me." He said, "While in the second floor bedroom, Andrew and Abby's room, I saw a shadow move across the room from the bed towards the northwest corner of the room, towards the closet parlor part of the room. I had been looking at pictures on the southwest corner of the room when I turned to see the shadow. It was an overcast day, and there was nothing outside the window that could move and cast the shadow in the room."
Wow.
So he did say
Cool.
he saw that. So.
Awesome. Lewis or Kent, have y'all heard of any paranormal activity there?
I did read the article that I read prior to the episode about the basement. There was actually a cut up cat found down there, which is where the disembodied cat meow.
Wow.
It was a beheaded cat. The cat's head was cut off by a hatchet down in the basement.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's perhaps like going back to the old superstition of burying the cat in the walls, or and
they also
intact?
Well, they also say that killers like that, whether it was Lizzie or whoever, they tend to practice on animals first.
Right.
Because there's no emotional attachment to an animal.
Right.
In theory. I mean.
Wow.
So yeah, I read that and I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. That's a good point to throw in.
Of course, then again, if Lizzie Borden was a serial killer, then where are the other victims?
Yeah, where are the other bodies? Yeah. But she could have been practicing just for mom and dad. Who knows? Lewis, any more?
I don't know that I have much to add in terms of the paranormal.
Okay. I just didn't know if you might have heard of anything. Andrew, have you heard anything else about paranormal stuff there? Tim had an actual experience, so he's going to share.
It's on my bucket list to go someday. Other than what my friend Warren shared with me, I really don't know anything personally. I have definitely seen a lot of evidence. The Lizzie Borden case is something that I've been interested in ever since I was in high school. So, there's definitely you just don't really know where to go, but there's a lot of paranormal activity in that house. Could it be brought in because so many people are seeking it? But I think some of it is definitely residual from that horrendous day. So,
Shoot, yeah. All All right, Tim, you actually stayed there, right?
We stayed there in June or July of 2000. Storm and
Wow.
I were newlyweds and just happened to call, and they had an opening for the. I'm trying to think of what room it is. It's the John. It's the room that belonged to the
Knowles?
brother-in-law. Yeah,
Knowles.
yeah, John Knowles' room. We didn't wind up spending the night.
Sorry,
We
John
actually wound up
Morse.
leaving halfway through the night. But they take you on a huge tour of the house to show you where everything is to start with before they start their ghost hunt, seance, whatever you want to call it. And when we entered the parlor where the father was found, I just remember moving from spot to spot. Because I'm one of these people. Back then, I was much more skeptical than I am now. But I.
You froze. Okay, there you go.
That's all right. I was much more skeptical than I am now, but I like to look at antiques, and they've got lots of antiques in that particular room. And so I would move around, and every place I would move to, I would have a cold spot that would come after I had already moved. And we were there, like I said, June, July. There still is no air conditioning in it. They have not made any major upgrades to the house at all. So it wasn't like I was getting a draft at all. During the
No.
We keep losing it. That's okay. For some reason, it may be StreamYard. I'm watching their monitor up above keeps going up and down on us. But when they were doing the ghost hunt throughout the house and stuff, I know. I remember being upstairs, and there's a mirror in one of the hallways, and kept seeing something out of the corner of my eye that was very feminine form in the mirror. And I turned to actually look at it, and it wouldn't be there. My wife kept saying the house was making her sick. So we didn't actually stay the night. We went, okay, about 1, 2 in the morning. It's like, okay, we're leaving.
Wow. So she was, say, psychically affected?
Yes. She kept saying, this house is making me sick. So.
Oh.
Wow. Gosh. That's crazy.
Which, going off of that little line right there, if there's really that much activity, the amount of magnetic field it's going to take for those spirits to show up that often, if you're sensitive, you are going to get sick. Yeah, you're going to feel just nasty.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
All right, as we close out, I want to show you something extremely creepy that I found. Someone took
I love that
new app that they got, and they put her picture in it. All right, watch right here as it closes out. She gives you a little smirk.
Wow.
Isn't that creepy?
Technology's creepy. Really.
When I found that, I was like, holy cow, I got to put that on the show. That was just too weird. Here she goes.
I liked
again.
it until the very end.
Oh, yeah, when she gets that little smirk on her face, she's just like, ew. Yeah, and she looks straight at the camera or straight at you. Ugh. And then the little smirk. All right.
That's
Final
awesome.
thoughts. Final thoughts, Andrea.
I feel like this is a clue game. So, Lizzie Borden definitely did it on the second floor with the axe. I hate speculating because, you could really ruin some good names. It could have been just a passerby. I think it's just really interesting, her lifestyle after the murders and how it changed, that she spent a lot of time in New York City with Broadway actresses. And, she had some really good friends up there. She kind of lived the high life, but in the end, she was really taunted in her later years honestly shunned by her community. Rocks were thrown into her windows. So, if she was guiltless and suffering from some mental instabilities, I think she was treated unfairly pretty much her entire life. Right. But if she was guilty, she got what she deserved a little bit, even though what she would have deserved was a 6'7" drop. So, which is how much like the rope would have been for the long drop. So,
So we watched the same video with the girl and had the Scotland Yard guy. She was talking. The blonde woman was talking to the detective from Scotland Yard, because they talked about the 6'7" drop. Yep. So we watched the same one.
Well, I got really into like the schematics of long drops from the tour because we would talk about the different forms of, drops, and so I got really into it. I thought it was a pretty interesting way to solve a problem to help it pass quickly, help someone pass quickly under those circumstances.
All right, Lewis, final thoughts.
Well, I have to agree with much of what Andrea said. I think that if she was innocent and her name was sullied, then it's a darn shame. And most certainly there are, of course, now these accusations that she may have been a lesbian, and perhaps that was why she was spending time with all of these actresses. And that brings a whole other viewpoint into it. But it's something that I've always wondered about a place like the Lizzie Borden house is if they're not possibly even just kind of taunting and torturing the spirits by continuing to investigate this and bring people in asking these questions. Lizzie, did you do it?
Right.
And I mean, even if she did, I mean, you're still kind of torturing her spirit and torturing the spirits of those who were murdered.
Right.
So it does bring up another interesting element to all of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that out, because it's like that. That's everything that is based at Lizzie Borden house now is the paranormal, and like we talked about before, taunting a spirit, it's just a lack of respect. And what was it? Some meme on Facebook was they're taunting the spirit, and this big old giant demon with swords and everything shows up, and it's like, now what? You've been taunting me. So, well, Kent, final thoughts.
It's hard to say. There's so many unknowns. I mean, just like we were talking about in the investigation tactics, the forensics, the evidence, all that. There's so many things that we don't know the answers to.
Right.
But going to kind of what Lewis was touching on, there is a belief out there in the paranormal world. The more that people believe, the more likely you are to bring that entity out. So if you've got 20 people in this house that are wanting to see Lizzie, wanting to see Andrew, that brain power is enough to bring them forward.
Yep.
May end up being a Tolba.
Yeah, exactly. You may not like what you get.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. I know Andrea said it's on her bucket list, and it would be a cool place to go. But I think it's one of those places that's just probably been over investigated. So many thousands and thousands of people have visited there. And, if there are spirits there, you'd think they'd probably want to go on to their final rest.
What I would say is
because they're not resting now.
So many people have been there. Just let them go.
Well, it's been 129, almost 130 years. Yeah. And it kind of makes me wonder. So we have an axe murder house that's local to where I live. And as long as that house had existed, and even after it burnt down and a new house was put there, they couldn't keep residents there. Like, there was enough activity in that house in over 100 years that people it was a high turnover. Yeah, you don't really hear anything like that in the Lizzie Borden house there. Like all of a sudden, like, you know, it went on, people live there. We don't really know what happens. We don't know if there was it. So I kind of agree with Lewis and Kent and you, Tom. Like a lot of stuff may have been just brought in, you know, and, you know, exaggerated some since
it's like
investigations started happening.
I just recently finished a series in my a podcast that I like to listen to, where they were doing the Sally House in Kentucky, Kansas, and Tim could probably speak to this more than I could, but something happened and he got cut off. But they were talking about how it's been investigated so much and so heavily that it could end up being just that, people bringing it in with them. But as we close out today, was Lizzie Borden innocent or guilty? You know, we'll probably never know. We'll probably never, that piece of evidence that says one way or the other, we'll probably never know. I would hope that she was innocent. But, you know, the circumstantial evidence, she was the only person in the house with means and motive, very possibly a motive. I have questions about, you know, she would have been covered head to toe with blood if she took off the jacket and put it under her daddy's head. I don't know. But it would have been, to me, hard to remove the blood from her hair and hands and feet in time for all the other witnesses to see her and say she had no blood on her. I mean, there's so many questions to me. And so, like I said earlier, I believe the appropriate verdict was given, and that of not guilty. You know, not that I believe she was innocent or guilty. It's just that they did not come forth with the evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she was guilty. So, yes, they gave the correct verdict, in my opinion. And, well, it's that time. We've gone over an hour and a half again, guys. Yep. Thank you so much, Lewis. Where'd you go? There you are, Lewis. Thank you. Andrea got to be back with us today, and we were with her a couple of weeks ago on Grave Hunter Society. Well, God, it's been 4 weeks ago now.
It's been,
Yeah.
about a month.
Because we've done one show in between hit. 2 weeks. Elizabeth Parker will be back talking about her books, her haunted ghost story book from Mobile, Alabama. So you want to be there for, you know, come back then and see us with Elizabeth again. Don't y'all just love Elizabeth? Anyway, she'll be back in 2 weeks of our Strange Authors. Thanks so much for being here, watchers. Thank y'all for watching. Kent, Lewis, I can't thank you enough. Appreciate y'all being back with us, Andrea. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.